she's going to apply a debuff on every single unit off rip, and then Dr. Ratio applies a debuff from his technique, and then Huohuo applies a debuff with her technique. So they all start off with 3 debuffs off rip, and since he only attacks one target at a time, we'll show it. I just wanted you guys to take a look at this, and it'll make perfect sense. So we come over here, we pop Ruan May's skill or technique, we pop his, that's 1, that's 2, and then we opened up with Silverwolf. So you'll notice that everything I just said is about to come to fruition here in a bit. We're gonna pull up the stat screen so you can see it. I haven't done anything with anybody yet. 3 debuffs on his head, a bug, a Scooby-Doo's debuff, and Dr. Ratio's decreased speed. Next person, 3 debuffs on his head. Next person, 3 debuffs on his head. So now we're already starting off to where if I skill any of them with my Dr. Ratio, guarantee follow-up, because you only need 3 debuffs on an enemy's head to guarantee the follow-up when he uses this skill. And now we need 6 debuffs on the target's head that we're about to attack in order to get maximum crit rate and crit damage bonus from his trace, and maximum damage bonus from his other trace that gives a 10% damage bonus per debuff on the unit's head after they have 3 debuffs. So this Scooby-Doo Silverwolf combo is just, it's huge for Dr. Ratio, because they give you the proper amount of debuffs so that you're popping off. And the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is Silverwolf. I get it. Some of y'all, like my boy Tech, I'm not a fan of Silverwolf. Listen, I've been very fair about Silverwolf getting underperforming after certain things have come out, but let me tell you something. When it comes to ratio, Silverwolf is absolutely best in slot. Her debuffs are ridiculous, guys, okay? One single skill in this unit goes from having 3 debuffs on his head to like several or 8 debuffs on his head from one single skill from Silverwolf. Broke his shield. We're gonna pull all this up. And now I will say it's also because he broke his shield. But look at this. He went from having 3 debuffs to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 debuffs from Silverwolf. And now when I attack that unit with Dr. Ratio, all his buffs are going to be activated, as well as Silverwolf's buffs that are on that dude's head as well. So that's why Silverwolf and Huohuo are just so dang good. Not to mention, Dr. Ratio with Scooby-Doo is another massive value, is her 40% attack boost and her energy recharge. But the 40% attack boost is incredibly valuable to Dr. Ratio because his base attack is absolutely disgusting. Allow me to pull something up so that we can see that I'm not talking out my ass on this. This is every Hunt Path character in the game right now. I want you to look at all of their attack. 5, 6, 6, 5, 6, and then I want you to look at Dr. Ratio. Brother literally power crept them. Factually power crept them in base stats alone. Every single one of his base stats is higher than every other Hunt Path character. His HP is higher, his defense higher, and his attack is really high. So when you get attack percent multipliers on Dr. Ratio, they scale very well. So that is another reason that Scooby-Doo is just a incredibly valuable character for Dr. Ratio. She not only gives debuff, she gives the attack percent boost, and she replenishes energy recharge on top of all the other stuff she does. So she is another good character, but I understand she's also not a very popular character in the community right now, and a lot of you don't own her. That's okay. I just wanted to present how powerful her and Silverwolf are for Ratio, just so you have that information readily available and accessible, okay? So let's move on to all the other things there are to discuss about his kit. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is what I just explained to you about his traces. He has a trace right here, what we just discussed. 6 stacks it can be stacked up to, and each stack gives 2.5% crit chance and 5% crit damage. Each one of these stacks is given to you based off of how many debuffs the enemy has on their head. This is why he needs 1 debuffer bare minimum in any of his team compositions. I don't care what team composition you're running, you need 1 debuffer bare minimum. If you don't run at least 1 debuffer, you are missing out not only on crit rate and crit damage, but you're also missing out on damage bonus given to Dr. Ratio from this trace right here as well, which by the way stacks up to 5 times on a 10% damage bonus for a total of 50% damage bonus. So you have to run 1 debuffer on this man's team composition. My debuffers, personally preference, are going to be Silverwolf as number 1, and then number 2 will be Pella or Gwen Ifen. Other debuffers can work, but those are the 3 best that are going to be very efficient with Dr. Ratio. Now, the next trace I want to talk to you guys about is Dr. Ratio himself can apply a debuff that actually helps affect hit rate induced characters on the team. So the thing that I don't like about it is he has to use his skill, which you kind of want this effect resist going into battle so people like Scooby-Doo can have a 10% increase effect resist chance of landing their debuffs. But it is what it is. After Ratio uses his skill though, he can apply a debuff. There's a 100% base chance, which means you have to build effect hit rate on him. But that, in conjunction with his technique, are 2 debuffs that he can apply himself. And if he breaks the unit's shield, they apply imprisonment on them, because that's what happens with imaginary characters. That's 3 debuffs in total. So Ratio can apply some debuffs himself. It's just not a reliable method of him being the only person applying debuffs on the team. So that's why you absolutely, again, I want to stress this, you need 1 debuffer. Okay, so let's move on with how do I build my Dr. Ratio. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it a buck. You can run that set that says the dot set that says if you have 3 dots on somebody's head, ignore their defense. You can run that on them, but it's just not competing with this set. This set is so broken with Dr. Ratio for a number of reasons. One, he's a debuff synergy unit, so you get crit rate 10% given to him for absolutely free 99 because you're gonna run him with debuffers and he's gonna be debuffing all day long. So you get a free 10% crit chance increase. That alone is ridiculous. But then you get a 10% imaginary damage bonus, and once they get imprisoned, you get the 20% crit damage. Now, normally, that 20% crit damage from imprisonment is very hard to pull off, like what is the reliable method? But with Ruan Mei on the team, I'm not kidding. Dr. Ratio might be the number 1 unit in all of the game that has the strongest weakness toughness breaking potential. What I mean by this is his toughness shredding is unreal next to Ruan Mei. Check this out. When he uses a skill and then he follows up, that's 90 toughness. That's an ult for a lot of characters. Silverwolf's ult is a 90 toughness ult. His skill and follow-up does 90 toughness. With Ruan Mei, that turns into 135 toughness. If he goes 2 times, that's 270 toughness. 2 times and his ult's up. That's 270 toughness plus another 135. That's 405 toughness in 1 cycle, assuming he goes twice, from 1 unit with Ruan Mei on the team. That is the most grotesque toughness kit I've seen in the game so far. It is absolutely ridiculous. So the thing, and I want to go further. The reason that is ridiculous is because once you pop his ult, he then has 2 more follow-up attacks. So it doesn't stop at 405. If he follows up 2 more times in that same cycle, which he can, you just have other units attack him. That's now 405 plus another 90. So he's now breaching, that's 500 toughness in total in 1 single cycle. Again, it's ridiculous. So why do I bring that up? It's because he can break people's shields effortlessly, proccing that 20% crit damage buff, and then putting 3 debuffs on their head between his technique, his skill, and then the imprisonment when you break shields with imaginary characters. So that's why I bring up why this set is so broken on a Dr. Ratio. You know what's funny? Pinacone has another set coming around the corner that's going to be synergistic with him, but I'll keep it a buck. This set, there's no need to run another set with this man. If you have this on him, you just run this set. Unless for whatever reason you're running him in a scenario where he can't get access to the imprisonment buff, the other set would be the better set. And that's without like covering any leaks or anything. It's not a big deal to tell you a set's coming around the corner that's going to be synergizing with Dr. Ratio. It's not a big deal. But I'll tell you this, if you get good sets on him or good substats on him with this set, you'll never have to worry about building another set again on this map, pretty much. Anyways, moving on to the 2-piece relic set. I know y'all see this is on him, but I prefer inert. And maybe it's a personal preference type of thing, but the 8% crit rate from inert brings my man to a 50% crit rate increase without building in any substats. We're gonna explain that here in a bit. You can run this set, especially if you have banger substats. It always comes down to what you have on your account. But if you have banger substats on this, sure, run this. I'm personally going to suggest you run Inert Salsada because he's going to need the 8% crit rate from it because he has to run a crit damage body to get the best out of it. Crit rate body, if you have a crit rate body on your Doctor Ratio, your Doctor Ratio is going to be incredibly mid. I'm just going to keep it above with you. The best Doctor Ratio build is going to need a crit damage body. So let's pull up some math here. Your eyes might bleed if you're not a math person, but keep it along with me, it'll make perfect sense. Let's scroll up here. Again, he gets 15% crit rate from his Trace ability if you have max debuffs on their head. He gets another 12% from his Trace tree. We can come over here. This, and this. All three of these is a 12% increase in crit chance, naturally. 399. 6 debuffs, another 15%. Every character in the game comes with a natural 5% increase in crit chance, which is right here. All right, and then reset, as long as you just have a debuff on somebody's head, free 10%. Inert, another 8%. 50% crit rate before you even build anything into your sub stats, okay? 50%. That is insane, and it's the easiest conditions to run a crit damage body. So what this means now is you come down here, his best sub stats are going to be building in 30% crit rate. That's 6% per piece on average. Since you're running a crit damage body, you now have 6 pieces. Okay, 6 pieces. Let me come over here. The freaking noobs who don't understand these things are like, that is so unrelatable, bro. You got 6 pieces in total to get an average of a 6% crit chance. That is not hard to do at all, and you're not going to hit me with you got bad luck. No, you just don't grind enough. That's the truth. Getting back to what I was saying, you want an average of 60% crit damage, which is 12% per piece on average. So you're gonna have pieces that say 6 crit rate and 12% crit damage. That is very doable, okay? Will it take a little bit of grind? Yes, but it's so doable, it's not even funny. Finally, EHR is something he actually needs because he needs to land his own debuffs. You need 30%. If you get 30%, again, that's going to be a 91% chance to land his debuff on most enemies in the game and a 78% chance to land it on big bosses. You're rolling the dice at that point. Anything else is telling you to roll any more than this is like doing the most, right? That's hard. That's very hard to achieve, but these are doable stats. After that is where we run into Dr. Ratio's weakness. You need 6 to 10 speed to hit the enough speed threshold to where he's going twice. To 10 is if you're running him with a Bronya and you're trying to manipulate him and going multiple times, right? Attack percent as a substat is a privilege. And I say it's a privilege because you need to hit all of these substat markers to really bring out an ideal Doctor Ratio. 6 to 10 speed, let's talk about that next. You have 103 base speed. I don't know why they shafted my mans because every other Hunt Path character in the game has 109 to 110. But 103 with a speed boot only pushes you to 128 speed. Which is why Ruan Mei is also really good, because she gives you speed going into battle. But because of this, that's why you have to build in a little bit more speed so that he can go twice. That's what this comes into play for. So that is a negative of Doctor Ratio that can be fixed with people like Ruan Mei who increase your speed of your whole team. But if you don't fix it, then now you have to deal with building that into his build as well, which can be a pain in the ass. Finally, best main stats. Body's going to be crit damage piece. Boot is going to be a speed boot. There are some niche scenarios where you can get away with an attack percent boot, but it's either like Dolphin territory or you're running a Ting Yun on the team, which, to my surprise, Ting Yun's actually not best in slot for him. We'll go over a tier list here in a bit. But then for the spear, you can run damage percent. It's the strongest option, but attack percent is actually going to be a solid option for him as well if you don't have a good damage percent piece. But damage percent is going to be stronger, okay? He doesn't have to kind of care where attack percent is actually going to outperform it. Finally, rope, you're going to need attack percent. 100%, especially because he has all that ridiculous base attack scaling. Now, I want to scroll up here just to give you guys an idea. If you have a decently built Doctor Ratio, you're going to be sitting at an 80% crit rate over a 205% crit damage. All right, everything we just went over, you should be sitting at 80% over around the 200 crit damage mark, and that's a very solid, Doctor Ratio. Now you're gonna have all the tryhards and Wells and Dolphins and people who just get sweaty. We're gonna have way higher crit damage, but this is more than good enough for your Doctor Ratio, and this isn't even considering his light cones. If you're a new viewer and this is the first time you're watching my content, I made a tier list telling you how good his light cones are and which ones are good or bad. You can go check that out. It's the previous upload before this video. All right, now it's time to move on to his best team compositions and synergies. Okay, so again, we're gonna go over some team comps that I recommend you try out, and then we're gonna go into the tier list of what I think his best synergies are. But starting off with this team comp, which I just showed you, this is a fantastic team composition. Ruan Mei makes Dr. Ratio not have to worry about min-maxing in speed into his substats. With a speed boot, he'll be at 128 speed, and then Ruan Mei will take him to 138 speed, which is really nice. But she also increases his weakness break efficiency, making him the most grotesque shield breaking unit in the game. Silver Wolf gives all the debuffs possible, defensive shred on the unit you're attacking, and then she also contributes to shield breaking, and she gives an all-type res increase, as well as Ruan Mei, meaning Dr. Ratio is going to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Finally, Scooby-Doo, if you don't have her, and I know a lot of you guys don't have her, swap her out for whoever the hell you want. Fu Xuan, Lorcha, you name whoever you have. Obviously it's a healer, so you go for whoever you want to go for. I really love this team. It's going to be one of my favorite teams to run. The next team is going to be with Bronya. Bronya is actually one of the most broken characters in the game that is legitimately a double-edged sword for Dr. Ratio. Why? Manipulating turns for Ratio to go is very good because every time he skills, he follow-ups, right? So he's just like Blade. With Bronya, making him constantly go multiple times is just insane. He's just going to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Problem is, Ratio is not like Blade. He's not skill point friendly. He's skill point greedy. So if he goes 4 times like Blade, that's 4 skill points. If you have an E0 Bronya, she brings him back twice. That's 6 skill points gone in one cycle. Because of this, and you need a debuffer, you can't just run any debuffer. You need a skill point positive debuffer, and what is actually not going to work in this scenario. You need maximum skill point positivity. So you're going to have to run a Lorcha and a Pella because these two units are actually very skill point positive. So it can work, but you need to run Lorcha and Pella for skill point positivity to make Bronya and Ratio work. Now, if you have an E1 Bronya, that's going to be a little bit better, but you're still battling RNG in that regard, and it's still a very expensive skill point composition because she's bringing him back multiple times. The other alternative is your Dolphin, who has 170 speed Bronya, because 170 speed Bronya is 8 speed on average on 5 different pieces. And I just refuse to believe that anybody other than Dolphins or people who just got lucky with speed stats have an average of 8 speed on 5 relics. There's just no, I'm sorry, I guarantee you 90% of the community doesn't have an average of 8 speed on 5 different relics, even if it's a rainbow set. That's just absurd. But you are those one-offs that can do it. Cool. What I will say is this comp works with Bronya, but not many other Dr. Ratio comps are going to work with Bronya for the most part because their skill point greediness is just ridiculous. So that's going to be a comp I recommend. Finally, I like this composition right here. Ruan Mei, Topaz, Dr. Ratio, and then Scooby-Doo. The problem with this comp is he's not hitting his debuff marker with this comp. He'll have a debuff from Topaz, a debuff from Scooby-Doo, and then he can apply some debuffs. But for the most part, it doesn't matter because Ruan Mei is making them both so damn strong. Now, there is something you can do here. You can run a 0 sustainless composition like this with the Ratio, but that's some try-hard shit. You gotta know what the hell you're doing. But I like this composition as well for those who are interested. Finally, the 5th composition is going to be the mono comp. It's going to be Lorcha, Yukong, Silver Wolf, and Dr. Ratio, to where you can pretty much universally run that against majority of compositions in the game, and Ratio is going to pop off because it's a mono composition, which leads me to my secret composition. Secret composition is going to be, I'll just go ahead and do it. It's going to be Fu Xuan right here. It's going to be Sparkle right here. This is going to be the same concept as the mono imaginary comp, except, well, Sparkle hasn't come out yet for one. We don't have to even go into leak territory. Just know that it's the same concept. Sparkle is going to be your Harmony unit, buffing the hell out of Dr. Ratio. Silver Wolf is going to be your debuffer. Fu Xuan's going to be your sustainer, and then now virtually 95% of the scenarios in the game you'll be able to run Dr. Ratio against because Silver will apply Imaginary and they'll be able to pop off. That comp's going to be absolutely insane for him, but I can't go into details obviously because Sparkle hasn't been revealed nowhere near close to yet. When she does, we'll come back to that conversation. Those are going to be the best team compositions. Now let's move on to the tier list. All right, so this is my honest tier list for Dr. Ratio. I think best in slot is going to be Silverwolf, Fushuan, and Sparkle together once Sparkle comes out. But until then, because she hasn't come out yet, and we can't talk about leaks, you're just gonna have to, like, you know, take me at face value for that one. But I think that's gonna be best in slot, that mono quantum composition with just Dr. Ratio. But if you don't, let's take her out of the equation, then it's gonna be Huahua and Silverwolf together with Dr. Ratio, and then fill in that blank slot with either Ruan Mei, or if you don't have Ruan Mei, Bronya's gonna be too skill point greedy on that comp, in my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but I think she'll be way too skill point greedy. But I think that composition is gonna be absolute banger for him. Finally, the next composition is gonna be Bronya, Hela, and I think it was Lorcha. Yeah, that's going to be a very banger composition. But these are the best in slot characters, in my personal opinion, for Dr. Ratio. These characters are absolutely amazing for him. They're just not going to perform as well as these characters. Ting Yun, you don't really need to battery Dr. Ratio up as much as you need to build battery other DPS up. Don't get me wrong, the follow-up attacks is nice and all, but he'll do it in a natural way with the cycles to the point where it's just, you don't need Ting Yun on that team. Now she can be used. Don't get me wrong. Ting Yun's cracked. I just don't see her value provide the same level of value as the other units. It's just my personal opinion. Gwen Ifan's going to be a fantastic option, especially for fire synergy. You can do Topaz, Gwen Ifan with Dr. Ratio and a sustainer. And then finally, I already told you she's going to be good for the mono compositions. And then down here are some niche scenarios. If you're wondering why Welt so niche, it's in the skill point greediness of Dr. Ratio, plus he needs another debuffer. It's just, the only way I could see him working with Welt is with Sparkle. And I can't even go into the details on that, but he could work with the Welt with Sparkle. Other than that, yeah, the skill point greediness is just ridiculous, man. But those are my thoughts. That's everything I needed to say before you build up your Dr. Ratio. Let me know your thoughts down below as usual. Peace, love, and happiness, guys, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
Humanity can see as its desire to control the heavens, and I'm no exception.
Time for an
Eternal
overhaul.
stay and return!
There's more to life. Every petal, all will be swept away by the wind.
You won't get away. You won't get away.
Do you know who?
It's a diamond! It's all yours! Time to kill!
Let's settle this.
I have something for you.
You won't get away.